Hello everyone, this is part 2 of the Dark Souls 2 video review series thing. The part 1 covered the base game, while this will be covering the DLCs for Dark Souls 2. If you want to see part 1, I'm going to be adding the link in the description below, and I'll also be adding a link to the Dark Souls 1 video in the description below. That's all, on with the video. Now, while there is definitely a set order the DLCs were released in, and one that I guess you're technically intended to go in, I'm going to be jumping around, just kind of playing it by ear, as I haven't really touched the Dark Souls 2 DLCs in years, and I also wanted to get the Frigid Outskirts out of the way first and foremost, which means we gotta play through at least some of Eleum Loyce. Now, when you're heading to the Shrine of Winter in Shaded Woods, you'll be able to find the DLC level, assuming you actually own the DLC. And if you don't, it'll simply be closed off by a blizzard and you can't see anything. I sadly don't have any footage to show this. As you approach the entrance, you'll be kindly told to piss the hell off and not come here, as it holds a deep secret. Spoilers, the secret is the Chaos Flame that completely screwed over Lordran, and it's being kept just barely at bay. If you're crazy enough to go in, you can fight the boss right now, but given they're invisible and have about 9,000 HP, it's not an advised strategy for your longevity. But hey, you can do it, so give it a shot if you're crazy enough. Exploring the other content in Eleum Loyce, we're going to see these soldier enemies that are kind of the common foes across all 3 DLCs, each with their own variants. Remember this elevator with this pile of coffins? It'll be important to keep in mind later on. Anyways, other than those soldiers, you'll also see some weird Cryomancer Ice Golem looking dudes that are actually really cool looking, and this blizzard area is, well, currently racked with blizzards, so a lot of things are frozen off from progress until we find a way to dispel the blizzard, and there's some cloaked enemies that do nothing for now, but once the blizzard ends, you are going to learn to despise them. So feel free to kill them for some easy souls. I'd say one of the hardest areas when the blizzard is still up is this little courtyard, because there are enemies that are going to be hiding behind the icicles. So if you're paying attention, it's not too bad, but considering that they can all use magic and they like to ambush you, it can be a bit dangerous. Keep this location in mind for the second part of Eleum Loyce. You're going to want to come back here later on. Well, you'll also want to come here now and get the bonfire set up, but it's the shortest path back to a key we need to get later in the DLC. Although, to be honest, you might not want to do it because it holds the worst content in the game. As you explore, you'll come across your first big gate that you need to open up, and this leads you to the outer wall of Eleum Loyce to see that part of the world is not racked with, well, not racked by the blizzard, and there's a locked door with iron bars that we can peek through. It's got a bonfire behind it, but it's just going to lead to pain and suffering, so we'll be seeing it very soon. The other thing of note is that this is kind of to show the blizzard itself was designed more as a seal and not so much as a part of the world. At least, that's supposed to be the story reason, though it is kind of weird how it's like, you go inside, blizzard, you go outside, no blizzard. You know, I can't put my finger on why, but I think one of these chests might have a trap inside them. I don't know, just a hunch of mine. The area with the ballista is an evil place that has a greatsword wielding enemy that is invisible. Don't explore it, just kill this one knight dude and then hang left and keep running. Of course, in true Dark Souls fashion, I died right before reaching a bonfire. Great. After a bit more exploring, you'll come across this crank with an elevator that, well, you can't fall down there because it'll lead to your death due to how far the drop is, but once you pull it up, you'll see it has all those coffins we saw earlier. That'll act as something important to us later on. We can't break it or anything, so really we're just moving it to remove a barrier in the future. Near the end of our trip through the blizzard-racked Eleum Loyce, you'll see the ominous glowing thing up top. Well, that ominous tower contains an item known as the Eye of the Priestess, which will allow us to see that which was unseen before, including the invisible greatsword wielding enemies, but also it's more useful because, what major invisible thing have we seen already? Maybe a giant boss-like monster? Yeah, we need this to see the boss. That being said, enemies that were once invisible are now going to become a lot more aggressive, but hey, we can go fight the boss now, so that's good. Let's go fight that boss, by the way.
This dead city has nothing to offer. Go back. Do not seek the old chaos, nor its twisted flame.
And our first boss of this DLC is Abba the King's Pet, a vicious snow tiger that is kind of a mess to fight. It's got some of your standard beast boss attacks such as claw swipes, pounces, and bites, along with a nice version of homing soul mass, although it's less so homing and it's more delayed, so it just kind of waits and then targets you. It's overall a fine enough boss with some excellent music, but one of the more unremarkable DLC bosses despite being one of the only monster bosses in all 3 DLCs. It's not a bad fight, and hey, it's not like you're having to fight 2 of them at the same time with a buff that increases their stats and regenerates their health at the end of the worst level in the game, while also having worse boss music and no run back. But yeah, overall Abba's fine. I definitely get caught by the bite attack more than I like to admit, but that's mostly a skill issue thing. And my one big issue is this kind of feels like one of the few fights where Dark Souls 2 shitboxes are really on display, at least for me, because I don't really have issues with a lot of the other melee attacks. With Abba down, we can now enter the room that, well, the Snow Cat was guarding, and that room happens to be the throne room of the Ivory King. A lot of stuff is still frozen over, however, but once we open the door, we'll be able to meet and speak with Queen Alsana, and I'll just let the dialogue play out from this point.
To think Ava could be bested. Who are you? This land is barren, cursed by the old chaos. It gave birth to atrocities, and the people fled in fear until our Lord, the Ivory King, came. My dear Lord, a most true king. It was with his magnificent soul that he built Eleum Loyce and contained the spread of chaos. But the chaos would not be sated, and the king gave his own soul. Inevitably, the king was drained of vigor and plunged into the chaos's heart. Eleum Loyce was frozen in time, its leader lost. I remain here to contain the chaos, honoring my lord's wishes. Perhaps one day he will return. There is nothing here save that accursed flame. I have but one wish, that my dear Lord might be freed from that unspeakable chaos. I haven't the strength to help him myself, but perhaps one such as you, though I am yet to know your name, stranger. Will you lend me your strength? Kind visitor, I thank you. Let me open the path to chaos. And please, do all you can.
Queen Alsana will be impressed by your ability to defeat Ava, and she'll both accept your request to explore the place and ask for your help to lay her husband to rest. And to assist you, she will thaw Eleum Loyce out for you. I should also mention at this point that Alsana is a daughter of the Abyss, just like Nishandra was, and likely had similar intentions as her sister at the beginning. However, the Ivory King was such an absolute Chad, he managed to woo her so much she genuinely fell in love with him, and now honors his wishes, keeping the old chaos sealed off from the rest of Dranglake. If you remember where the second bonfire was, we're gonna just run that route for a little bit until we see this path that was once frozen over, and now it, well, no longer is. I hope you have a butterfly with you, or you brought a torch already lit, because you're going to need to light the 4 torches here in order to open up the door that is sealed off. There's an absolute clown car of enemies down here, including not 1 but 2 different flexile sentries that will try to kill you, but if you run, you can pretty easily get the garrison ward key and you can get out alive. Unfortunately, the place this is taking you, you might be better off dead. With the garrison ward key in hand, we can open this iron barred door, gaining access to the 5th and final bonfire of the DLC, even though we're still missing the 3rd and 4th. Don't worry about it too much. And you can gain access to a special kind of hell once you jump inside that coffin. Welcome everyone to the secret area of this DLC. You see, each DLC contains an optional challenge level designed for co-op, and basically none of them are really any fun, but this is the worst of them. To quickly explain the Frigid Outskirts, you have to navigate this massive snowfield area to find the boss at the end, and to get through it you want to head from building to building, so it's best to wait for the blizzard to clear to see what direction you need to run in and then just go for it. The real challenge comes from the fact that these flying electric reindeer enemies come in to make your life difficult for you. And while they're technically limited, there's like 70 of them, and this map has not a single checkpoint, so if you die anywhere here, it's a start over, including at the boss fight, which is very likely considering the boss is terrible, but it's also one of the hardest in the game. Now, to make things a little bit easier, I was in a Discord call with my friends doing this area, and I don't really have a lot interesting to say about it, so I'm just going to give some of the funny uncut moments from, well, my run through the Frigid Outskirts. Enjoy.
We pushed everyone back. They came back.
Did
So,
they?
like, clearly they weren't bad guys. Well, then how do they come
Child
back?
innocence, I guess?
I didn't know they
Child
came
innocence.
back.
Well, remember when Majin Buu kills everybody? And
The
then in
Cell
Super,
Juniors
they're
gets back?
back? Yeah, he has the Cell Juniors on the island.
I don't remember that
You
at
are
all. And
the Dragon Ball.
Hold on, let me look this up.
I don't remember that.
I'm seeing conspiracy theories that they're the guys who fight Gotenks and Trunks in Dragon Ball Super.
Maybe it's only in the manga, but this is a thing. Is that they're clearly not evil enough.
I'm guessing because childhood innocence or something? I don't know.
And they are
Lincolns.
juniors.
Oh, okay. Well, Android 17 explain. Oh, hold on. I need to read this panel. I don't think I read like any of Dragon Ball Super before the Moro arc because I just like watched the anime for it.
Yeah,
So this might
it's
be
just
new.
the anime.
It's because there's not really much reason to. It's about 1-to-1.
Yeah.
Well, for most of it. Outside of Jiren, of all things, being a little bit more interesting in the manga.
Roshi!
Let me stream this here. This is interesting.
Oh, I like.
It went full fanfic and it was like Gohan Blanco versus like Cell Rojo or something, and they have like
Fanfiction
someone
like a big thing in Dragon Ball community.
yeah, they get Damon Clark back, and I remember like, why hello, it's been some time, Gohan, you're all grown, or you know whatever, and then he like the fucking fan animation where he kills Pad.
And then Gohan goes absolutely berserk. Actually, I don't even know what happens after. It's just him so pissed off.
Dude, it would be so awesome if, for whatever reason, Toyotaro, who I know is aware of fan happenings because he was picked for his Super Saiyan 5 fan design. That's how they like scouted him.
Wait,
Yeah,
really?
like, he's the ambassador of Mexico.
Yeah, he knows. He used to like make like
Mexico.
fan art of Cooler or something before getting hired.
So that means that they could
And why
eventually
is he
make
still
El
no cooler
Hermano
and
canon.
stupider?
Yeah, I need to make the Grand Priest like the final boss, and then have, and then have Jiren's brother El Hermano come to like. I think what they should have is that he's been like erased from every universe for being too powerful, like some Dragon Ball Heroes shit, where he's in some like prison beyond. He breaks out or whatever.
What if he was betrayed and imprisoned in the hyperbolic time chamber?
Yeah, he was
Would that
betrayed.
be a
Betrayed.
reasonable explanation?
Because what happened is Jiren strongest, but he could never surpass his brother. So
El
instead
Hermano.
of getting stronger than him, he cheated by tricking El Hermano into the chamber and then destroying the gateway.
I really hate having to earnestly say El Hermano as a character name. Well, yeah, just El
Say
Hermano.
El
You had to trick
Hermano?
El Hermano.
Yeah, El Hermano is the like official fan-decided term for Jiren's fictional green brother.
Was this
I thought he was
created by a
blue.
Mexican guy?
He had a retarded
Is he
alien
blue?
head. He had a blue outfit, but I think
I'm
his
actually
skin
confusing him with like
was
the
green.
Luigi in my head.
I can't look
Yeah,
it
was
up
he-
right
was he
now.
created by
Through
some Mexican
Frigid
blogger?
Outskirts still.
Yeah, he's blue.
He
His
had a
head is also,
retarded
like,
alien head.
lenticle.
And he had a blue
Isn't his
Pride
head,
Trooper
like-
outfit.
Pointy or something for some reason, like Kiadi Mundi
Yeah, he
ass
looks
head.
like Kiadi Mundi. Looks like Kiadi. There's a mod
He has
in
that
Dragon
brilliant
Ball
head.
Fighter Z. Let me just put this on. I
He
haven't
looks like
seen it.
Jiren.
Well, yeah, because it's his brother.
Yeah, the
But
Hermano.
why is his name like Hispanic though?
Oh, there he
Because
is.
the fans are all
Because
fucking
Mexico.
No,
And of
no,
course
his
he's
name
fighting
quite literally
Shaggy.
translates to just the brother.
Yes.
Yeah, no, I don't know. Some Mexican guy thought that was cool. I don't know.
This is the coolest thing ever. No, it's heavy. Went to the other side. Yeah, I just hate fighting El Hermano so much.
Yeah, he's a real pain in the ass.
El Hermano,
He's
the strongest
really
character in Dokkan.
I can't take that name seriously.
El
I legitimately
Hermano,
can't take
the
You
it.
shouldn't
strongest.
take the name seriously.
Like the white man version of those fan fictions is just Tien should be the strongest character.
Yeah, or the art of like Goku impregnating Vados.
What?
That's
Okay.
Well,
I
let's
feel
see.
like
What
that was
video is
his
it
old like
specifically?
top 10 thing was a clip from Final Fantasy.
Oh, the Shadow of the Colossus
Yeah.
music. I
Right,
remember this.
forgot
Yeah.
about that. Man,
I love this intro.
we need to
It's got
bring
the
back
Avion
like
music.
dramatic intros that are too long for like 2-minute videos. I have fury. Oh yeah, Contra 4. Oh, this is so nostalgic seeing
Yeah,
this.
it's just random.
But you
Yeah,
know
this
what?
This
You
is
know
good
what
old
though?
movie maker scroll.
This stuff was cool as hell when I was a kid. I'm not gonna pretend like it
No,
wasn't.
yeah, dude, these guys are my role model.
Yeah, they
These
were-
guys are why I make videos. This guy, or let me pull up the video.
It was a surprising sampling of games. Like, there's always such a wide variety you watch. He's like, I've never seen that before.
By the way, I have more views now than Speedy Man or something, which is really weird to me.
Oh
no,
man,
don't.
Speeds.
Yeah,
I remember the
this
Speedster.
video is-
Didn't he like rank
This
all
video
the?
was like my first ranking video I ever saw, and I thought it was cool as fuck. It aged pretty badly. The audio mixing is horrible. Ironically, foreshadowing my Metroid Prime 1 video, which had the same problem for some reason. But
Inspiration.
It's because it was an early video. They
remember-
always have bad audio mixing. You should. God, I think my worst one is my Sonic Generations video. Like, I'm leaving it up, but oh my god, it is terrible.
Alex,
Like,
can you
a
explain?
collage of random junk. Like he references the Terminator.
Alex, can you explain her Duke Nukem Forever diss with Gene? I did not pick up on that.
she says, "You don't want it to become no more heroes forever, do you?"
Oh,
because
yeah.
That's
like,
because
if-
the game was still in development hell at that point, and it was also still relevant at that
Yeah.
point.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and if
Alright.
the reason that she was saying that is because she actually does have a fully like explained backstory for Travis, but you have to like slow the game down or something to
Yeah.
hear it.
Yeah, if you actually, I remember, I think
read all
Rabbit
the
Luigi actually showed the full thing in one of his old videos. He's like, okay, no, we're not doing
Yeah,
this. Here's the
it's like-
speech.
It's like their parents like molested her or some shit, so she killed them, or like something that was like pretty dark and would have got them an X rating, so they just sped it up.
Travis'
remember.
her mom abused her mom and molested her, so she killed Travis's dad and mom in front of him.
Yeah.
Pretty
And then
fucking
he, like-
badass if I do say so myself, although her actual character is kind of just like stupid. I mean,
Well, they also like vaguely retcon this in 3, because 3 has this other weird backstory for Henry and Travis, and I think
Henry was Sylvia's husband who you're fucking.
I don't like that they
Yeah,
they asked Quentin Flynn in 3. Like, the other guy doesn't
Yeah, that
even
was
try to
bullshit.
sound like Quentin. That's so dumb. Especially because it
Yeah,
later
they
got...
removed his accent. They had like a retarded explanation, and like, oh, he was a sleeper agent and lost his accent when they snapped him out of it or whatever.
Wait, David, who was the YouTuber you said that covered Travis's like full backstory?
Wait, could you repeat that?
I think he
Oh,
was
Rabid Luigi.
Rabbit
was back when he
Luigi
still-
I also watched a lot when I was younger, by the way.
It was like back when he
He
still did
talked
Let's Plays and back when his
No More
videos were
Drinks
still...
Well. They're like the old style countdowns still.
He still makes videos. I haven't watched them in a while, but he's like
He
around.
still makes countdowns, but they're a little different. I like that Rabid Luigi was an English gentleman, so he had a very like large affinity for Henry.
Yeah.
That's true.
And
Like he was
I
just the
remember the
British
way he
version of
wrapped all the
Lockhart.
videos. He'd be like, "It's been Rabbit Luigi," and like he had like a really fast.
He doesn't do that
delivery,
anymore.
slowed
Like,
down
I've seen some of his newer videos. He doesn't do that anymore. It's so lame.
video. He was at one point like ranking every Sith ever from weakest to strongest, and he had a list of like 300 of them.
Oh, Jesus
For
Christ.
you
some
do realize
monster.
that's like a massive can of worms, right?
No, Jack.
Hold on.
Jack
Hold on.
genuinely has encyclopedic Star Wars. No, like he's not
Okay,
like a
okay. Do you realize that
Hey,
that
I say
alone is
do
gonna
it
cost
because
us
guess
outrage?
what? That'll be a
Shorts on
lot of
Star
easy
Wars.
interaction for your channel. That'll be
That
a
is
lot of
true,
easy interaction
like
but
for
Sword.
your channel.
let's just say that he, like from his knowledge, he says something
I
that
have
like
watch history on. Now, like
a
thinking,
big quarter
what
of the
videos am
Star
I
Wars
not
fans
watch
would be
so I
like,
can be true
actually,
side and not professional.
I mean, Star Wars fans always get angry. They're like one of the most consistently
so
hostile.
I'm just gonna say this right now. As soon as that video drops in some capacity,
just so
in like a
much,
matter of like a
like,
week or maybe
contrast
even a
between the
few
3 years of
hours,
Star
You will
Wars
get a
people.
death threat.
Jack's gonna be messaging you like, dude, what are with these comments?
Yeah, there's Star
Why are
Wars
they gonna-
factions.
why are they
You gotta
talking
be
about this?
careful.
You will get at least one death threat if you do that, I guarantee you.
You'll get more than
It's all
one.
good.
Oh, I know. I'm
I
just
get
lowballing.
angry comments. Do you know what? On like a few times out of curiosity.
I'm just thinking of Woody like being repossessed by like a nerd guy, but worse than that collector dude in 2.
Oh.
And then he just like jumps onto his desk and sees 4chan. It's like, I don't know, like doll gooning thread is just something horrible, like the jar thread. It's like wide-eyed, like what is going to happen to him?
Honestly, one of the more entertaining parts of the game is how there's just an option to play with your cat. I thought that was so fucking cool.
So why does your cat talk in No More Heroes 3?
Wait, what?
No,
Oh.
yeah, Gene the cat talks, and he's like this like
Super
you know, he
deep
has like this
voice.
tough.
Fucks me up. Oh well, I mean, of course he's gonna have a super.
There's no explanation, like on purpose. Suda basically just like felt like it and just like made that.
Because it'd be funny.
I'll be right back.
The only reason why autism stock is going up is because everyone wants to everyone needs commissions for fucking like furry Steven Universe porn.
Jesus
so
Christ.
in that way,
Oh god. I wish the snow didn't go up for like a whole minute at a time because it just makes running through annoying because you're like, I could go this way, but I don't want to spawn extra reindeer. Of course, as soon as I say it.
I think Zollan comes down at like a certain health value.
No,
or something.
no. My last attempt, he came down when Lud was was at 90% health.
Oh,
So-
maybe.
Wow.
I've never seen that before. It was terrifying. Then
I'm kind
nowadays
of
you
surprised
got
how Lab can make a big game. Like, just size-based.
Forgotten Land is not short. That game is actually surprisingly long, especially for Kirby.
Yeah.
standards.
It's like
Pretty damn long.
25, 26 hours or something like that. I've heard.
If you're going for 100%, then yeah, you're probably looking at around 24 hours or so.
100% is fun though. It isn't too
Oh,
bad.
it's actually a ton of fun, and it's because the extra mode is part of the main story. It's not like, well, it's part of the story.
It's not.
It's not just a separate menu you toggle into.
Yeah, it's different. They designed it as its own thing, and at least the gotcha thing that they've been doing every single time on Kirby.
Well, the gotcha in this one you can
it's
rig.
never as bad. Yeah, you can rig. It will never be as bad as it was in Triple Deluxe.
Oh, Triple
Jesus
Deluxe was
Christ, we're
terrible.
Smoking.
Also, does Alec know that he's deafened?
Issues with when I first got
Honestly,
it.
the Switch
okay.
ports for No More Heroes 1 and 2 are some of the best like HD remasters I've seen, just ever.
Yeah, they were good.
Maybe I should go modern. I'll just play the Wii version of 1 and then I'll think about it.
Wii for 1 is totally fine, but for
Wii
2, I would definitely recommend the Switch because 2
Yes.
has an annoying issue in the very first fight where it won't let you recharge the sword. Like it won't. Let
Oh, you mean,
like, trigger
Skelter?
the shake.
Or
Yeah, the fight with
knockoff Cloud
Skelter.
dude?
However, there's a bug I got where it just wouldn't let me recharge, and it was like game breaking.
Oh yeah, knockoff Cloud. All right,
Yeah.
Luden Zalin, attempt number 9, I think. I don't know. I'm not counting anymore.
Dude that finds Final Fantasy and meant somebody kind of like a babe.
He's a major dig at the Advent Children design for Cloud that was like an anorexic emo dude. This is so annoying. At least I've got Vengarl here to help. You know what?
How are there?
Dark Orb.
We're in that fight for a while, dude.
It's because
they,
I
like,
have to keep
alive
doing the
still?
run back.
Oh yeah.
That's the problem. It's like it's not that long of a fight. It's probably only 4 minutes tops when you beat him, but it's like a 8-minute run back. I mean, it could be shorter if I knew the exact route, but I had to wait for it to stop so I can see where I'm going.
Yeah, I know the exact route, and it's like still pretty long.
It still takes a
the
bit.
absolute shortest. The absolute shortest I've been able to get it to, considering I never stop running, so I know the exact path is like probably like 4 minutes or something.
The biggest thing I learned is
I
that
could check
apparently
my
there's a healing fountain halfway, which is like weird, but it's like, well,
What?
dang,
I didn't know
this-
that either.
Yeah, you use a Ferris Lockstone, but it's like, neat. If this wasn't such a horrible
Oh,
area,
okay, I
I'd
guess I
actually
didn't
kind of
know
like it.
Goku either. I do have Cell and Beerus. I have
The
Cell and
Kamehameha?
Beerus.
Yeah, everyone has Beerus. Beerus is cool.
I think I
was
usually.
thinking-
I think Beerus and Cell. I don't
It
remember what
seems
kind
you're
of
my
one
friend.
I'm using, but Beerus was like the one I had for the longest that I used. I think.
Yeah, I saw everyone had Beerus, and that was before like Racing
Wheeze?
Beerus came out.
That's a friend, Baker.
Okay, good.
Love
Blood
that
is
game.
dead.
If I had to
Blood
rate,
is dead.
like,
I'm just gonna no honor the shit out of this.
kick his
Dark Orb.
ass.
Dark Orb.
Didn't they add like Orange Pickle into Fortnite and he looks like balls?
That I have no clue.
I'm still
Wait,
remembering.
isn't
I'm still stuck on the
Solid
whole
Snake
buff
is in
Peter
Fortnite,
thing.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, he has a bite attack. I
Last
forgot
time I
about that.
played, he
Dude.
was being added.
It's only a matter of time until we get like fucking like Sonic the Hedgehog or something.
Sonic's gonna look weird, like the whole lanky limbs thing. People
No, you
complain
want to see
about is gonna get
Cursed? You
worse.
should look at like the Sonic
yeah,
skin
dude, that's
for
gonna look awful on
Phantasy
Sonic.
Star Online 2.
Really big ass head? Like imagine the headshots.
You should
You
look
know
at
what
the
they should
Sonic
do?
skin for
Just to,
Phantasy
just
Star
to
Online
piss
2.
everyone
It's
off, they
cursed.
should make his arms blue.
Oh god, you make Chris Chan so mad.
Oh
Well,
god.
no, dude, I'm not even. I'm talking about like Cyber Shell, like guys I actually like watch and enjoy. I'm not talking about like the retards who get mad
I
over
just found the
everything.
Sonic spin in Fantasy Star.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
but like, dude,
It is a little
It's
horrible.
cursed.
I'm talking about like Sonic autists, not like complete like freaks. You get what I'm saying?
Well, yeah, people who will notice it and then make the same Chris Chan joke as I. It's like, oh man, they made
Yeah.
Sonic's arms blue in Fortnite. Don't tell Chris Chan.
What?
I did hear the rumor that the Snowman, instead of being voiced by Dana Snyder, was going to be voiced by the Rick and Morty guy, but they couldn't get him anymore because
Justin
of,
Justin
Roiland,
Roiland?
because he raped someone.
yeah, Justin Roiland. Like, I won't remember Justin Roiland, even though he voices the characters and made Rick and Morty, but I will remember Dana Snyder for being Master Shake.
Okay. Zalin had the buff going on for so long that it actually wore off.
Oh wow, I
Are
didn't
you
know
like
that.
wonder leveled?
No, it's because I'm summoned, so he's got extra HP, and also I'm playing it very
Oh,
cautiously because I don't want to run this damn place again.
Yeah. Hey, you've been saying
Oni
the
plays
attempt.
fan meeting. Well, this is awkward.
Like, every time you say attempt 7, it's like, man, these attempts take a while. And I remember Dark Souls runbacks.
It's because this is the worst run back in the series, well, except maybe 4-2, but like, you're not going to die to Old Hero unless you're trying to
Yeah.
challenge yourself.
You have to
Like,
be
that's
level
probably a
1
worse
to
run
die
back,
to
but you're
hero.
not going to die to that boss unless you're doing a challenge run or like a no thief ring or something.
Even without the thief ring, he's a useless bum. That guy's a fraud.
I honestly think we could have
He's kind
gotten...
of-
Oh, thank God.
Supersonic Infinity
It's
Star.
over. It's over.
All right, Alex, dude. Tomorrow, no more Heroes 2 will be purchased and played.
Excellent, excellent.
No More Heroes 2 is a really fun one.
I'm gonna be honest. I don't really know if I want to play the third one or like Travis Strikes Again. That one looks like shit.
He then went on to complete the entire No More Heroes trilogy as well as Travis Strikes Again. Anyways, thanks guys. Y'all made the run through Frigid Outskirts in the 3.5 hours a lot more tolerable and also kind of enjoyable. If you like boss rankings, go check out Sidenox. They make way better videos than I do. Alright, the true pain and suffering is over, so I guess let's head to Brume Tower. And honestly, if going off memory, this is probably my least favorite of the DLCs in the game, and I'd go so far as to say probably my least favorite of the DLCs in the series because of how hard it was. Though, upon replaying, while it's still probably my least favorite of them, it's nowhere near as tough as I remember. Just be a bit patient and you'll be fine. And also, I guess I should mention, whenever you enter the DLC, there's 2 different warp rooms, and that's because this DLC holds 2 different hidden challenge areas that you can play without having to own the DLC. Cool idea and concept, but kinda mean in execution because these locations are designed for co-op and nothing else, and they're not the most fun. Either way, with a Moneybags required ahead, let's get to tackling the bulk of the second DLC. And I feel I should mention, I'm not the biggest fan of this DLC. As I've said, Ivory King has its issues, as we've seen, but I think this one has a much more annoying gimmick. The least interesting variants of the soldier enemies, and, spoilers, my least favorite unique enemies out of the 3 DLCs, and that's saying something considering Ivory King had both the evil reindeer and the hedgehogs. But we'll get to that when we get to that. Outside, I do think that it's visually a pretty striking area because you can see the different towers and the ash covered them, and you can see it's like this big metallic structure. It's really cool and very memorable. You'll see a husk of a creature that gives you 6 smelter wedges, and that's a good thing because you're going to need them, and I'm going to complain about them a bit later on. The game is quick to show you why you want smelter wedges because you're going to be attacked by an aspect of Nadalia that shows up with a dark firestorm ready to scare the life out of you, which, hey, it is pretty cool, and honestly, this is a good tutorial and a relatively safe way to introduce the player to the Nadalia idols. And you'll use smelter wedges to destroy them, and there are just enough smelter wedges to destroy all the Nadalia idols. However, one of them cannot be obtained until after you've killed the, I guess you could call it, true final boss of the DLC. So do your best to keep at least 4 of them on hand until you reach the 4th bonfire of Brume Tower, because you'll really want them for one of the boss fights. And it's really annoying because it actually outright punishes you if you were playing through and taking out the Nadalia idols as you went, and you found all of them because you wouldn't have enough smelter wedges at the very end. But we'll get to that. Exploring a little bit more, you'll come across the first proper enemies of the DLC, and it's more of those soldier guys that we saw in Eleum Loyce, because all 3 DLCs share a template for their basic soldier enemies, though this isn't really a knock against the game, because each DLC has its own unique enemies, and they have their own twists on the soldier variants. Unfortunately, what is a knock against this DLC is that the Brume Tower twist is terrible. I hate these guys because they seem to be bulkier than the other variants, and more importantly, they can pop out from beneath the ash to try and ambush you, and these are the ones that really just get spammed to death. They're not fun to deal with. Heading down deeper inside the tower, you're going to come across your second Nadalia idol, and this one shows that they aren't just firestorm spammers, but can cause unfortunate effects for you, the player, and in this case, they buff the Ash Knights, massively increasing their defense and poise, but once you destroy the idol, their buffs will go away. And in some cases, enemies that were created by the idol will be destroyed, but if they are only buffed by the idol, then generally they'll still be there. It's a little weird and kind of inconsistent. You know, I feel like there's a secret wall here. I just can't put my finger on why. After opening another door, you'll see a bunch of hollows carrying large barrels that run away from us and fire spewing obstacles. Yeah, just a spoiler, those barrels contain gunpowder, or I guess black powder in this case. So, kill them before they can blow up, or ready some fire arrows slash fire orbs, or whatever sort of ranged fire damage you can do, and unleash your inner demo man. But, once the workplace safety accidents are behind us, for now, we can finally reach the second bonfire in this level. You know, thinking about the level design here, I gotta wonder if this bonfire was originally meant to be a trap or have an extra step to access it, given that, well, these statues usually spit fire. Anyways, after exploring some more in Brume Tower, we have some, well, more factory-looking areas and a couple of not-so-hidden trapdoors that are designed to drop you down below, but thankfully not to your death, but instead down into the ash pits where some soldiers lie in wait, as well as a new enemy type. These lava shoulder furnace demon club wielding looking dudes that, by the way, when they hit you they also start inflicting bleed. And once you go down there, there's an Adalia idol that's going to start buffing them. Yeah, screw that room. Honestly, I just say use your bow and cheese them out with poison arrows because those enemies hit like a truck. It's not worth it. Once we get into the outside area, however, the annoyance isn't done because there's going to be another new monster. These floating archer fuckers might just be my least favorite enemy in the game, or at the very least bottom two, and somehow they're beating out the reindeer. Why? Because they have some very awkward movements, a great bow that can shoot you around corners and ledges and over walls. They move quickly, they have a flaming sword, and they have some weird combos with them rolling around the ground like they're Cassandra the Dusk Eater from Claymore. Spoilers for a 20-year-old manga, I guess. Then we get introduced to, well, my script says the last new enemy of this DLC, but that's a lie because there is another one that we will see in a side area. It's these assassin witch enemies that can cast lightning spells, and they're also notable because they make very little noise, and some of them will try to ambush you with their daggers. Surprisingly, I don't hate these enemies. They're used fairly well throughout this DLC, and their armor piece is great if you're into Fashion Souls. But unfortunately, I got careless here, and, well, I ended up getting killed, leading to my first death of this DLC. Thankfully, if you were already able to get that gate open in the room with the Nadalia idol, it's actually not too hard of a run back because that's the only major obstacle. Otherwise, you can just kind of dash and dodge through everything. And you can also find some +3 variants of quartz rings that give you some major defenses, boost various offensive elements, but most importantly, like fire and dark are good to nab because you're going to be dealing with a lot of fire and dark throughout these DLCs. And surprisingly, once you reach that big round circular room, you've already made it to the third bonfire, and this is going to be your main hub of the DLC because all of the remaining bonfires are right before boss fights. If we were to head back from the bonfire and go back out, well, the way we got in, there's another tower that you can go to if you cross a chain. However, I recommend saving that for the very last thing you do in this DLC for 2 reasons. One, there's a very special enemy encounter there that can be pretty dangerous, and for 2, that's where the last Nadalia idol is, and, well, again, if you use every smelter wedge as you go, you won't have enough Nadalia idols for the boss, so I definitely recommend just saving that one for last. Now, this part of Brume Tower has actually got a pretty cool room gimmick going on, where it's all centered around these cages that you're able to raise up, or I guess not cages, but bars you're able to raise up, and the explosive barrels. You see, the more progress you make, the quicker shortcuts you'll have back to, well, wherever you go if you were to die. Oh yeah, also those explosive barrels have a further blast radius than you may think. But it's also a case of, well, do you want to essentially rush through it and have fewer shortcuts, or do you want to take your time and create more shortcuts? The answer should always be take your time. And if you'll notice, these fire spewing statues not only have a short period they turn off, but they're also on a track. If you were to hit those statues, they'll actually start moving, and you can use that to your advantage to trap enemies and burn them to death with the environment, which is, I think, a really cool thing that this game lets you do. Thanks to some looping level design, we're able to raise another cage that gives us another shortcut back to the second of the bonfires. And while I definitely understand why people prefer Dark Souls 1's world design, and honestly I do too for the most part, I can at least appreciate that the levels themselves have their own interconnected looping areas, and I do think that's not a bad choice. Now, we'll see that the next place we need to go is this tower. And given the fiery windows, it seems to still be active, so seems like there's something pretty major in there. Maybe we should get ready. Now, once we get inside, it's quiet, eerily so. There's a new enemy type here, and they pretty much only spawn in this one part of Brume Tower. It's these crawling guys that charge at you at a awkwardly slow pace before randomly leaping or trying to increase some speed. Here's the thing though. They have a certain interaction if lit on fire. That does not mean that they are super weak to fire. Instead, what will happen is if you shoot them with a fire arrow, or if they end up running into the path of one of these torches, because these torches are overflowing with, I believe, oil, they will catch fire themselves and start to ignite. When they ignite, they do lose HP, yes. However, they'll now start charging at you at Mach speed, angrily trying to murder you, and doing a lot more damage. And when they get close enough, they will go for a kamikaze explosion, which puts out the fire, and actually that does kind of make sense if we're going off a realistic sort of thinking. However, what's really scary is they can kind of just go and hold that self-destruct for as long as they want. It's not on a timer, and that's kind of annoying. Of course, those kamikaze crawler dudes aren't the only thing down here, because you'll always get invaded by Quicksword Rachel. And she's got a poison buff on her weapon to make things a bit more dangerous, but ultimately she's just another Dark Souls 2 NPC invader, and not one of the special ones. So she'll fall to the pancakes just like everyone else. And yeah, I don't really have much to say about that. I was gonna try and make a Claymore reference here, but I already did one earlier, so yeah, maybe not. Now at the bottom, we have 5 separate doors we can choose from. But if you're going from left to right, numbering it 1 through 5, the only door you need to open is the very first one on the left, because that will take you to the room you need to go. As for doors 2 and 3, they're just a loop designed to connect to one another, kind of for some PvP shenanigans. Door 4 has the spell Recollection, and door 5 has a whole lot of nothing. So yeah, don't even bother, just go through door 1. Well, I think I found the source of the fire, but something tells me they're not just gonna let me go and take it. And then, after you survive the clown car of enemies, you can get the Scorching Iron Scepter, and we can now use that to go and activate the main Brume Tower itself to make progress, because this is just a little side path. Now, if you're wondering where to go, just warp back to the 3rd bonfire in Brume Tower. That'll take you exactly where you need to go. Now, with the Scorching Iron Scepter in hand, you can either Homeward Bone or Death Warp your way back to the 3rd bonfire and slot it in the conveniently shaped hole in order to activate Brume Tower, which means now there will be a lot more fire going on and all the machinery in this place will be working. Though, I guess to be fair, the conveniently shaped hole makes sense if it's a factory, because you would want your keys to work properly. Anyways, I definitely think the level design here looks really cool, but it probably would have been better if it was Elden Ring's, ability to jump vertically. I kind of wouldn't mind seeing Elden Ring try something more like this in the future, which I guess they did with Volcano Manor to an extent. But maybe go more harder with the factory. Though I don't know how many more Souls-like games from FromSoft will be getting in general. Now, there are a couple areas you can go, and one of them Well, the main path is going to be heading down, but I still recommend first you want to head up because it will lead you to this little ashy plateau area you can go to that has 3 of these golem enemies hiding beneath the ash, and they will come out to ambush you. But you want to come here because this is where you get the iron tower key, which will allow you to access a couple of doors. One of them leads to an Adalia idol, and the other one leads to... The tower key will lead you to one of the optional challenge areas of the game, the Iron Passage, which we'll come back here later. I don't really have that much to say about it, and I don't have any crazy B-roll or anything like that to go over, or funny unscripted things, because I was here for all of about 20 minutes when I did my successful run. Now, as far as actual progress goes, you have 2 directions you can do. You can either choose to go up the tower or down the tower, and ultimately you will need to do both to complete this DLC. But I decided, hey, let's go up the tower first, because this will allow us to get a couple extra smelter wedges, though there are also some extra Nadalia idols on the way. And thankfully I had 5 of them on my hand at this point, which is good, because there's one of them that you're really going to want to take out. The Nadalia idol in question is buffing an NPC invader called Prowlers, who has both a bow and a katana that he will rush you down and try to take you out with. And he's one of the more aggressive NPCs. He doesn't have a shield or any sort of defensive measures, but he can be very dangerous, and he's smart to hang back near the giant healing beacon if you're not aggressive enough to take him down. But you see, even once you take out the Prowler, you're not done, because it was the Prowlers. So yeah, multiple of them will pop up, and they will start attacking you at this point. So if you hadn't taken down that Nadalia idol, good luck. Thankfully though, even though these guys spawn in a wave and you have to take them all out to truly complete this and count this as an invader banished, the Prowlers you've killed will stay dead even if you die. And once all of the Prowlers have been slain, you will get the Mad Warrior's Gauntlets and be able to make your way to the very top of Brume Tower. Now, what lies here at the top of Brume Tower? Well, the end of it. All that's up here is a bonfire and an Eastern armor set that, as of right now, doesn't do anything. But when you activate the bonfire, you'll notice that it's not the 4th bonfire, it's the 5th. So yeah, we've still got some more we got to do. Anyways, if we want proper progress to be made, we're going to need to head down into the depths of Brume Tower. And here, there's more enemies, there's some more Nadalia idols, and everything else that wants you dead, including gravity. Yeah, I fell to my death quite a few times going through this place. But thankfully, I was able to get some of the doors open, meaning the tried and true mad dash method was a godsend. Just maybe use some stamina recovery or stamina boosting items if you know what's good for you. Like, I would recommend having the Rose Crest shield and maybe some green blossoms on. Oh, and these guys actually start having fire buffs on their weapons, so they do even more damage than they did before. And if you want to get through this particular area easily, or quickly anyways, take these not really trap holes, but like these sinking floor bits. It's dangerous, but hey, it can work, and it's pretty cool. That being said, you're definitely going to have to play around the lack of invincibility when pulling levers and opening doors here, because, yeah, the enemies here really want you dead. Now, for a lot of Dark Souls areas, I tend to be an advocate for fighting and properly exploring the areas, at least your first time through, but honestly, no, Brume Tower is much more of a when in doubt, just keep running. Especially because after you get to the second bonfire, really, you're no more than a 5-minute run from the next one. And once you make it to the end, you're going to see a fog gate that holds our boss. But before that, do not continue, hang right, and run for it. Ignore any enemies that spawn from below, just keep going. Why? because this is where we'll find the 4th bonfire of Brume Tower, and this is your bonfire right before the boss. Though you may notice those Nadalia idols. You see, they're casting a healing AoE as well as a buffing AoE. I hope you have 4 smelter wedges and you didn't use all of them up as you went, because you're going to need to, well, you don't have to, but I highly recommend you use those smelter wedges to destroy the Nadalia idols, otherwise they will buff and heal the boss throughout the fight. And the fact that it's possible to, well, essentially lock yourself out of having all the smelter wedges before this fight and making it impossible to destroy all the idols is kind of annoying. And once you're ready, step to the fog gate and be prepared to face off with the Fume Knight, considered by many to be the absolute hardest boss in the game, to which I say not even close. Don't get me wrong, he's not easy, but I'd say there's at least 4 bosses harder than him, and 2 of them are in this DLC, and the other 2 are in the Ivory King DLC, one of which is Ludden. And if I'm being perfectly realistic, the other boss that you have to fight after you take out Fume Knight is, in my opinion, a good bit harder than this guy as well. But there is a decent amount going for him, and I do think he's harder than probably any of the fights in the base game, other than maybe Smelter Demon. I don't know. He's one of the few Dark Souls 2 bosses with 2 proper distinct phases. Phase 1 has him using his Ultra Greatsword, as well as a longsword. However, his longsword is going to be the main part of his combos, while the Greatsword is only really used as his combo finisher, or for a strong single attack. And the reason you really want to take out those Nadalia idols beforehand is it acts as spots that exclusively heal him for the boss fight, as well as just buffing him in general, making a lot of the arena big regeneration zones for him. Imagine if he effectively had a warmth that never ran out and would keep healing him however long he decided to camp in there. But once he gets to around half HP, he'll discard his longsword and ignite his Fume Ultra Greatsword in the Black Flame, making it hit harder and have some extra attacks. Also, fun fact, if you wear Velstat's helmet, he'll immediately go into phase 2 at the start of the fight, as this is Raim, one of Vendrick's 2 loyal knights, but ultimately had conflicting ideals with Velstat, which led to them having a duel where Raim lost and was branded a traitor and exiled. That being said, phase 2 is honestly, in my opinion, easier as long as you have at least 99 agility or higher, which means like 28 adaptability, because his combos are more or less the same as they were before, just with a lot more range, and he does have one newer, scarier attack, which is an AoE ground stab that explodes and shoots out little black orbs in a, like, I guess, kind of bullet pattern. But he also has this big flaming sweep that does a lot of damage, but it's so slow and has a locked animation, making it not only very easy to heal, but it may as well have a sign saying, "Punish me." I do think he's a fun fight, but he's by no means the hardest boss in the game, and I wouldn't put him anywhere near best boss in the game territory either. Though, for defeating him, you will find what is Nadalia's true body, and you'll get the crown of the Iron King. It also causes another change in the world, but we'll talk about that near the end of the video. Yeah, I gotta be honest, I don't really have anything of note to say about the Iron Passage. It's honestly probably the most inoffensive of the optional challenge areas, or at least I would say that, but the only one that I really hate with a burning passion anymore is, well, that would be Frigid Outskirts. This one is fine. It's basically 3 rooms. You just kind of make a mad dash towards the end, and you've got a bunch of strong enemies on the way. Alternatively, there is an upper path that if you're quick and you can dodge the fireball hazards, you are able to avoid the enemies up here. But that's about it. Nothing super crazy happens, and I mean, yeah, I just don't have much to say. The enemies can use Tranquil Walk of Peace, which is kind of annoying and kind of diabolical, and there's one guy waiting to ambush you, but once you know he's there, it's an easy plunging attack. And then the boss at the end is just the Blue Smelter Demon, who is like the Smelter Demon, but, well, he's blue. Oh, and he's magic element instead of fire, and has like 5 times the HP. Well, that's probably not accurate, but who cares. He's also one of the bosses in this game, well, in the DLCs, that is able to vary the timings of his attacks, and I believe this DLC is where that trend began, because there is another boss in this DLC that can also vary his attack timings. I don't hate this fight, or Iron Passage in general. It's a decent enough area for co-op, and I think the idea of making it a speedrunning dungeon isn't terrible, but it's not my favorite. Thankfully, the entire run is short enough, it takes about 45 seconds to get through, so it doesn't really tick me off, and at the very least you have even if it's a reskin of a good boss at the end. And though I think I still prefer regular Smelter Demon over Blue Smelter Demon, if only because he's like better scaled for the point of the game. While this guy is either going to be completely stomped, or he's going to be a massive wall depending on what build you have. I don't have much else to say about it. The last of the major DLC areas is going to be Shulva the Sanctum City, and to get here we need to go through Black Gulch, and we need to enter the shrine that's behind the Rotten's Arena. Also, speaking of behind the Rotten's Arena, I found a Sublime Bone Dust that I never picked up, and I could have had for about 30 hours of game out of my 40-hour playthrough. Would have made things a lot easier, but oh well. My own mess-ups aside, I'm actually very excited to tackle this level because, while I did go out of order, I was saving the best for last, because no secret here, I think Shulva the Sanctum City is the best level in Dark Souls 2, and arguably the best level in all of the Dark Souls games, like Dark Souls, Demon Souls, Bloodborne. The only place that might beat it would be the Ring City from Dark Souls 3. Now, if we're counting Elden Ring, then yeah, I would say Shadowkeep has it beat, and probably 1 or 2 other areas. As you enter, you'll slowly start to see it's an underground temple that looks really cool, and the DLC opens up with a dragon taking off and flying deeper into the city itself. Now, Shulva actually has quite a few gimmicks to keep in mind, but the one you're going to be seeing throughout most of the city is going to be these switches. They can either be squares on the floor that you're able to press or attack, or they'll be these little pillars that you need to either hit with your weapon or shoot with an arrow or spell in order to trigger them, and this will have an effect by manipulating the level design, and this is a trend that continues throughout the entirety of Sanctum City and what makes the level design so good. The enemy soldiers are the same as the other DLCs, but they don't feel quite as bulky, and there's no real out-of-nowhere ambushes. Instead, you know where they are, and some of them can poison you. We also see an odd enemy type that I believe is exclusive to the Sanctum City here. It's these little turtle guys that have status-spewing statues on their back. For the most part, they're only going to be poison ones. However, there are going to be some that have a, well, petrification status, which can be very annoying. They're not hard to deal with if you know what you're doing, but you're basically going to need either a bow or binoculars and magic to actually hurt them. Or yes, Firestorm. That would also work well, because any weapon or melee attack, unless it's doing some sort of random, like, uppercut sort of slash, it's just going to plink off their stones. They're not hard enemies, but they can be mildly annoying. It won't take you too long to actually enter the Dragon Sanctum area, which I keep wanting to call the Dragon Shrine, but no, the Sanctum itself, it's the Dragon Sanctum. The Dragon Shrine was an area in the base game. You'll see a door that's sealed off and requires the Sanctum key to open. We'll get that a bit later. And I don't really want to explore too far into the Sanctum right now because this place is pretty difficult. So instead, let's go find a bonfire. Now, if you climb up this tower, there's a bunch of switches you need to hit in order to raise these platforms, and they're kind of scattered around this little area. It's not like hidden or anything, it's just a quick scavenger hunt. But it's cool, and it's a nice little puzzle, and if you pull it off, you get the second bonfire of the Sanctum City, and basically the only one you're gonna find for a good while, because the next one is, well, you have to run through most of the Dragon Sanctum to get to, but it's not as bad as it sounds. Heading inside the temple proper, there's a lot of tricks and traps here, as well as some phantom enemies, but they're not NPC phantoms, and instead, they are these seemingly invincible foes that look like ghosts and have twin blades sort of like the ghost from Dark Souls 1. However, the gimmick here is that you need to find their real body and destroy it to leave them vulnerable to damage. And those bodies can be destroyed in a single hit, so usually a bow and arrow works pretty well. And yeah, it's a neat little gimmick. They're kind of scary, but thankfully they're not real overly spammed, so it's going to be more so using the level design to keep yourself alive. Though, I do wish they were a bit better paced out, because you only find the bodies here at the start of the Sanctum, and then in a side room near the end of the Sanctum. You don't see them any other time. Now, the Dragon Sanctum will also introduce us to Sanctum Witches, which are another new enemy type. They like to cast dark magic, like most witch foes do, but they also sing to add to atmosphere, and whenever you kill them, they have a final attack they can do upon death where they'll spew out a cloud of poison, though they don't always seem to do this, so I think it's more of a counter for overzealous melee attackers instead of anything else. You'll probably notice in the Sanctum here that there's these giant circular doors, so I hope you have a bow ready because we're going to need to hit the switches, usually either right in front of them or right behind them, in order to rotate them. But that doesn't just open the door, instead it rotates it about 90 degrees most of the time. You'll want to use this to your advantage in order to get to different areas. Now, these dual-wielding phantoms are a lot more difficult and also a lot scarier to deal with when you don't have a body to destroy them, so you can't just take them out right away. Instead, what you'll have to do is more or less move around carefully and kite them into places where they can't follow you, which is okay. I think it actually adds a little bit of a fun factor to it, almost like a puzzle. And yeah, I actually do enjoy this gimmick and these enemies because they're not overly used. There's only like 8 of them in the entire game and they're all in this one location, so it's cool. Now, by far the scariest room in this Sanctum, and also probably the toughest part of this entire DLC, is the Mausoleum area, where all the remaining phantom bodies are stored, as well as some more phantoms that want to murder you. You'll want to move around carefully. However, I said that they were immune to all damage. Well, that's kind of a lie, because the strongest force on the earth will in fact kill them regardless of what form they may take, and that means gravity is your best friend. As such. Also, the Dragon Sanctum does hold 2 key items you're going to want to pick up. One is in the Mausoleum area, as this will get you the Eternal Sanctum key, allowing you to open that locked door at the very start of the Dragon Sanctum, which will lead to the optional challenge area of the DLC and its boss fight, which means maybe you don't want to grab it. And the other one is much more important because you'll need it to progress. The much more important item is in a treasure chest in the room with all the spikes. This is where you'll get the Dragon Stone. You're going to need to hit some switches around this room to open the door, but the Dragon Stone is an item you'll need to ultimately advance to the end of the DLC. Make sure you pick them both up while you're in here, otherwise you're going to be going back in the Sanctum and exploring it. Now, near the end of the Sanctum, we actually have a required NPC battle, because we get invaded by someone special. You may recognize Jester Thomas, and yeah, he's back. You won't be able to go through that fog gate blocking you off until he's dead. And the thing is, Jester Thomas is one of the few invaders in the game I would actually consider genuinely tough. However, he has this weird caveat where he's not likely to attack you until after he's emoted, which is honestly just really funny. I don't know if there's some deeper gimmicks to him that I don't know about, but yeah, he's this really powerful pyromancer. He can cast warmth to heal himself. He can drop chaos fireballs right in your face, which just makes lava everywhere. And yeah, he's a tough fight, but he's actually pretty fun and one of the better invaders in the game. Though there is one more that I think is a bit more, shall we say, infamous among the NPCs in the Souls series, and we'll get to him. Oh boy, will we get to him. Now, the end of the DLC has this, well, not end of the DLC, but the end of the Sanctum has this almost stealth section where you can find the next bonfire, but you need to be careful because it's filled with these Sheegoth enemies that like to fire out electric balls at you and also just strong damage in general. Though it's really not that hard to deal with, and I don't see a lot of the complaints here. Just be a little bit careful or shoot them with a bow. Going back to explore a bit, if we use the Eternal Sanctum key, we can open that locked door at the start of the Dragon Sanctum, and that will take us to a treasure room, as well as give us access to, well, the secret challenge area, so to speak. Now, we're here in Cave of the Dead, and I'm gonna be honest, I don't really have much to say about this place. It's... okay, I'm not gonna go and say this level's good, but looking at it now and taking a step back, I actually do see what they were going for here, and I don't think it's as bad an execution as I remember it being. So the idea is that there's a lot of these status statues around the place, and a lot of them, instead of being the poison statues, will actually have red eyes and they can petrify you, which is terrifying. But as long as you don't go rushing through everything like an idiot, you won't really get petrified, and you can also break the statues, and they'll stay broken for at least a while. The most notable thing, though, is it encourages you to use a torch, because if you have a torch on you, then you'll be able to mark your way, so to speak, because the torches mark the correct path, and that way you can run through the area quicker in the future. Also, this guy has the world's wobbliest mace. I don't know why, I just found that bit really funny. Now, our epic showdown of this dungeon is a battle against 3 NPCs. Yeah, I'm not a huge fan, to be honest. The Havel and Lucatiel clones are fine, but it's the katana-wielding jerk that's far more annoying to deal with, so I like to try to separate them as best I can before trying to pancake the weeb. Unfortunately, that's not the easiest thing to do in the world, because both Havel and Weeb like to stick together, making things very annoying, and if you're really unlucky, Lucatiel will come down and join the fray as well. Sometimes she hangs back, and other times she just kind of shoots at you. Yeah, I don't think this is going to be anybody's favorite boss fight. I honestly don't have much to say about this fight. It's a juggling act that I'm not the largest fan of, but the arena design honestly isn't bad, and in a different boss fight, it probably could have been a lot better. Well, better utilized. Surprisingly, the music is also pretty good. No, not good enough for me to go out of my way to download the music file for this video, but, you know, it's, like, not terrible. Sadly, we're still about a decade off from truly good NPC boss fights, but I think if it was just Ancient Soldier Varg and Sarah the Old Explorer, it would have been a more enjoyable fight, just having the idea being a fast and slow, or ranged and melee. But, of course, it's the afflicted grave robber here who kind of ruins the fun for everybody. Near the edge of the lake with all the angry Shiggoths, we can put our Dragon Stone to use and, well, open the way to the end of the Dragon Sanctum. Now, I hope you found it, otherwise you're going back inside the Sanctum to, well, go and find it. The final stretch of the Sanctum City as a whole is the, well, I guess true Dragon Sanctum. I mean, it's still listed as Dragon Sanctum, but you know, it's like a bit different from just Shulva. There's only really one enemy type here. It's the Drakeblood Knights. This is your final enemy type of the DLC as well, and think of them kind of as the predecessor to the Lothric Knights, as your strong warrior type enemies that aren't quite like usual NPCs and have their own fighting styles. They're pretty cool. This is also another area I would like to see with similar level design in something like, say, Elden Ring, because having a jump here would be great due to the super vertical level design, but regardless, it's a good place, and the lower you get down, the louder the singing you'll hear is going to become. Also, check the inner walls thoroughly before you drop down to the final floor, because one of them has a secret wall that holds the bonfire right before the boss. You're probably going to want to get this because it's not a super long area to run through, but the boss isn't exactly one I'd call easy. And with that, this DLC has had more dialogue than the entirety of Crown of the Iron King. Anyways, our boss fight is against Elana the Squalid King, another daughter of Manus and a sister of Nishandra. And she does fight similar to Nishandra, but with the big shakeup being that she's actually a good boss fight, having a lot of spells in her arsenal, such as Flaming Delayed Explosions, her AoE, which can be used more than once, various bullet patterns with her projectiles, as well as the ability to teleport short distances, but never really spamming it, it's just more of an extra movement option. Usually, she'll actually use this as part of her melee combos. Elana also has a bit of an RNG aspect, but one I'm okay with, where she's able to summon enemies to assist her in battle. These can either be skeletons, which are the most common, and will usually come in threes. The least common she can summon are harmless little piglets, which are meant mostly as a joke. And last is Velstadt, yeah, as in the boss, which she'll summon to create an interesting 2v1. Unfortunately, I didn't get any footage of her summoning Velstadt during this playthrough, but it's still fun when she does it. And honestly, from what I've gathered, it seems to become increasingly more likely the lower her HP gets. But as we can see here, it's not guaranteed, unfortunately. The idea is that her odds of summoning Velstadt are going to increase as her HP drops lower and lower, and I think it also depends on if you're on higher New Game Plus, as well as if you have co-op. Though, sadly, I just kept getting the skeleton boys the entire time, so they kinda got stomped pretty easy, and made the fight overall be one of the more unremarkable battles. Though I do still think that this is a good boss, it's one I enjoy quite a bit, and I think that the music here is surprisingly good. And with the Squalid Queen slain, all that's left is the end of the Dragon Sanctum. And the only thing between us and the final boss of this DLC is a single bonfire, and technically a short little hallway. I think you all know who it is, so before we go tackle the final boss, I think it's time we go around the 3 DLCs and start our cleanup. Now, at this point, the only things really left to do are fight all the bosses, except we do have a bit of cleanup, and if we want to stand a chance against the Ivory King, we're going to need to explore non-frozen Eleum Loyce. So, yeah, it's time for us to go find the knights. First night, I recommend starting from the 5th bonfire, running past the ballistas, then you'll get to the bridge that has an NPC Black Phantom to invade you, and yeah, you just take her out and the Loyce Knight is right there. Not too bad. Next up, you start from the 3rd bonfire, run past the golems and the other enemies, and you'll find the 2nd Loyce Knight, and this one has some stairs behind it that will lead you to, well, they'll lead back to, where you meet with Alsana. Thankfully, it's not too hard to do and you don't have to actually interact with them or anything, so even if you're getting chased by a mob of enemies, you're good to go. The final Loyce Knight is special. First off, take the elevator down from early on in the DLC and get murdered by the worst enemy in the game. Deal with an annoying but overall fairly easy NPC invader. The biggest thing is he can cast Tranquil Walk of Peace, but that also leaves him wide open to getting smacked. Run and pick up the 4th bonfire. Oh, and watch out, because we're being chased by this dude. Don't trust him. He's very evil. Do not trust him. After beating him with a blunt instrument a few times, he's going to run off, and, well, I'm sure we'll never see him again, so no need to worry, right? Then we have, in the Ice Cave area, the Covetous Demon of all things appearing as a mini-boss. Yeah, that's a little weird, but alright. There's no real changes to his combat style, it's just that he has much higher stats, so you really do need to be mindful of his damage. The snowfield stands out because it's the only place you see these golem guys and they're actually already activated, so you can't just cheese them out and kill them before they have a chance to wake up. And moveset-wise, they're actually not bad. I kinda wish one of these dudes could have been the boss of Frigid Outskirts over Lud and Zalin. And after going through a little area with entirely too many hedgehogs, we can open the door to access the 4th and final Loyce Knight. If you're wondering, hey, wait a second, what about the first one? Well, he's already sitting at the pit ready to help you for the boss fight. You get one for free. The other 3 you have to find. And we don't really have anything to go find in Sanctum City. All that's left is the final boss there, so I guess we should probably head off to Brume Tower and get that stuff wrapped up. Remember that bridge I said we'd save for later? Well, if you cross it, you'll see that we get invaded by a man known as Maldron the Assassin. And yeah, he looks a lot like that dude from Eleum Loyce that was a random white phantom that could be attacked and then ran off mysteriously. This is not an NPC, this guy is actually part of the game, yeah. He turtles behind a great shield, and shield pokes you and charges you. He's very annoying to deal with and has pretty high dodge rates if you're not careful. But what's interesting, when he gets to low HP, he's scripted to run away down into that pit. Do not follow him down there, because down there is the final Nadalia idol as well as a bunch of enemies. That Nadalia idol will buff the enemies on top of inflicting curse on you. And it's going to constantly build up, so your max HP will go down and down. What you can do, however, is use your Seed of the Tree of Giants. This is the one time I find it useful in the story. Well, there's actually one other time if you were to like have some hard NPCs, but yeah, this is the most useful one, and I just think it's a really funny way to kill Maldron. But now let's run down there now that he's dead. The inside of this place is just a spiral staircase with a bunch of enemies, and we can't do anything about the Nadalia idol yet, but if we're quick, we can get to the bottom and open this chest up in order to get the treasure inside, and I think it's one that's worth grabbing because it's honestly one of my favorite weapons, the Majestic Greatsword. I take the death here because, yeah, I had no real chance of surviving that. But the Majestic Greatsword will require high investment of 25 strength and dex as well as 20 intelligence and defense. But it's worth it. I think it's one of, if not the best weapon in the entire game. Outside of maybe the Red Iron Twin Blade, but that weapon's overpowered. Now, the last part of our cleanup, and by cleanup I mean this actually leads to a boss fight, we're going to go back to the top of Brume Tower, the 5th bonfire, and after you've killed Fume Knight, the Eastern armor is going to start reacting. You can now use the Ashen Mist Heart to delve into a memory. This will take you to the memory of the Old Iron King. Yeah, I don't really have much to say about this. This is the true final memory level of the game. I do recommend summoning some NPCs to help you, but maybe have the Banished Crystal on standby so you don't have to use them for the boss, because the boss is pretty fun. There's really not much to the memory of the Old Iron King. It's really just 2 rooms, and it's got a bunch of Elan Knights that are going to try and kill you. It can be annoying, but thankfully it's not as bad to run through as you might think, because the very end has this long hallway with nothing in it, but that ends up being a positive because it's long enough it will break basically all the enemy aggro outside of that one last Elan Knight that you may need to be careful about. Oh, and watch out for any archers. Now, out of our 3 final bosses remaining, first up we have Suralan, quite possibly my favorite boss in the entire game. There's no tricks, no gimmicks, just a 1v1 against a warrior of similar skills to you. But he does have a shake-up, where like Blue Smelter Demon, he can alter the timings of his attacks. So you need to pay attention to what he's doing, and honestly, I think this boss is much tougher than Fume Knight, but I don't have nearly as much to say about it. It's not really any crazy gimmicks or anything, and that usually is to the boss's detriment in Dark Souls 2 because of its combat not being quite as good. But I think in this case it actually ends up working out well, even though his ankle just kind of glitched into the pillar for a second there. And with that, I think I'll leave you with his boss theme, as in my opinion, Suralan's theme is one of the best boss themes in the series. It's by far the best boss theme from the first 2 Dark Souls games, and probably top 5 in the entire Soulsborne series. Have a listen, everyone. Fun fact, if you are able to no damage the boss fight, he has a unique death animation where he'll commit seppuku. Otherwise, for beating this boss, you'll get the you'll get the final smelter wedge, so you can now go and destroy that last Nadalia idol in order to get her soul if you want to create her boss weapon, but I don't really care. For the Sunken King, there's no points for guessing what the boss here is, as we've already seen him twice. Ladies and gentlemen, get your bracing knuckle rings ready, it's time for Sin the Slumbering Dragon. Okay, time for maybe a hot take, but I think Sin is a better boss than Calamite, both in fight and in music. And yes, his introduction can hurt you, but the fact that it's not a cutscene really does make it stand out to me because it looks really freaking cool. Sin has a lot of the same attacks as you'd expect, or as you'd seen with Calamite, but he's a lot more elegant and less of an absolute spaz, with 0 wind-up charges to worry about. Instead of having dark fire, his breath is toxic due to his internal organs being pierced by that giant ballista dragonator thing, causing a deadly mixture of his flames to be green and, well, very toxic. Thankfully, the toxic buildup is surprisingly very minor. Some people don't like his tendency to fly, and sure, it can be a bit annoying, but here's the thing. For at least from my playthroughs and my experiences, I've noticed that at least in vanilla Dark Souls 2, whenever he flies, pretty much the only thing he's going to do is a fireball that he immediately follows up with a charge down towards you, which if you're good with your dodging, gives you a good, well, chance to capitalize on the attack and strike back against him. I think it's a well-made boss fight, and one of my favorite dragons in the series, coming in at a respectable 5th place, behind... well, I'll leave those a secret for now, because I kind of want to do a Dragon Bosses video in the future. But yes, I think Sin is a great boss, and I have quite a lot of fun with him. Defeating him will net you the crown of the Sunken King. But now, with that handled, it's time for us to go and confront the true final battle. In Eleum Loyce, head to the throne room, and with your army of Loyce Knights gathered, get ready, as it's time to dive into the old chaos. Oh, and watch the top right corner for something kind of funny. Yeah, that one Loyce Knight's foot always clips through the floor. It's, well, not through the floor, but like into the screen. It's pretty amusing. Before the boss battle begins, however, we see what became of the Loyce Knights that joined the Ivory King in his trek to stop the Chaos Flame, becoming charred husks stripped of their valor, so it's time for us to put them down and give them an honorable death. They will spawn endlessly, but we're not alone. We have the Loyce Knights in our party here that will assist us taking them down, and as time goes on, they will sacrifice themselves in order to seal off all 3 spawning portals. So technically, you only actually need 3 Loyce Knights if you want to stop all the charred Loyce Knights from coming in, but I do recommend having a 4th one as a safety net just in case one of them gets killed, because it is very likely one of them will get killed. If you see a Loyce Knight start turning blue, he's going to run for the portal, so make sure he's not about to get murdered. And yeah, otherwise it's just kind of an enemy rush for a bit. It's not as... well, I don't know. It could get annoying, but if you've got a high damage weapon, which you should by this point in the game, this is literally the final boss of the final DLC, you can take them down pretty easily. And after all the gates are sealed off and the charred knights are slain, it's time for the final battle. If you manage to find the 4th Loyce Knight and he survived the Charred Knight battles, then he'll assist you in this final battle, but just a heads up, he's not going to last very long unless you're really pulling aggro. And heck, in my run, he was cut down by the king just in the crossfire, not even as part of the main attack. But here it is, our final battle of Dark Souls 2. The man who sealed off the Chaos Flame. The man that kept Dranklake safe from suffering the same fate and falling to the demons like Lordran did. Although we couldn't stop the hollowing, he at least stopped one tragedy. The man that managed to win over a child of the Abyss in a genuinely loving relationship to the point that she now lives and honors his wish long after he's gone. The Burnt Ivory King is the reason the Chaos Demons don't live in Lordran, and story-wise, I think he's pretty much a perfect final battle having a fight against him. Well, the one king in Dranklake that may not be in his prime, but he's still firing on close to all cylinders instead of being a pathetic shell of his former self, like the Iron King, Vendrick, or Gwyn. The king himself lacks any major gimmicks, as he's not a gimmick boss, he's the leader of an army. That is the gimmick. And you're facing him with an army of your own as you follow in his footsteps, amassing your own small army to finish the job. Both armies are gone, though, either sealed away or perished in combat, so it's time for the two rulers to have their clash. The last thing of note is at half health, he'll buff his sword to give himself a powerful magic buff and a high range boost. It turns into a lightsaber. But with that, we have our final battle against arguably the best boss in the game. Going back to speak with Elsana, there is one more thing you can do as kind of a post-game content where she wants to lay the souls to rest, so you can dive back into the old chaos in some bloody palace as combat, and once you amass 50 Loyce souls, you'll get Elsana's soul, and you can trade it for a boss weapon. What's really interesting is the boss weapon doesn't do good damage, instead it heals others instead of strictly harming them. It's a gimmick weapon, but it does fit her character pretty well.
Long ago, in the depths of the abyss, my father perished. The dark shattered into tiny pieces, one of which was me. How frightened I was. A frail thing, born from but a splinter of dark. I felt that I might simply disappear. I am, in fact, the incarnation of my father's fears. I saw that the king of this land was strong. I sought him only to sustain myself, to smother my fears. Now, I realize that he may have known all along. I was born of fear, and my Lord provided comfort. And so, here I remain, heiress to my Lord's wishes, watching over chaos. Until the end of time.
And with that, Dark Souls 2's story has finally come to a close, and the video is finished. I thank you for watching, I hope you enjoyed, and if you like it and want to see more, consider subscribing. With that note, I will leave you with Vendrick's dialogue.
Seeker of fire, deliverer of crowns. What do you see in the flames? Find the crowns and your own answers. The crowns hold the strength of lords from times long past. Seek adversity, as befits you, seeker of fire, coveter of the throne. Seeker of fire, conqueror of dark. I too sought fire once. With fire, they say, a true king can harness the curse. A lie, but I knew no better. Seeker of fire, you know not the depth of dark within you. It grows deeper still, the more flame you covet. Flame, oh, flame. Seeker of fire, I see you've subdued another foul creature. One of the father of the abyss spawn. That confounded quintessence of humanity. The abyss once had form, but then dissipated. And yet, traces of its existence endured. Each fragment, thirsting for power, spread dark with no relent. My dear Chandra was one such fragment. A feeble, tiny thing that thirsted for power more than any other. Driven by insatiable lust for a worthy vessel. Fire came to be, and with it, disparity. Heat and cold, life and death, light and dark. Dark was seen as a curse. Shadow is not cast, but born of fire. And the brighter the flame, the deeper the shadow. Inherit fire and harness the dark. Such is the calling of a true leader. Dark was shadow and the such